Do you remember the last time you opened a bottle of champagne? There's a gorgeous blend of excitement and fear in case the cork ends up in somebody's face or eye. We've all been there. When I was 19, I was trained by a sommelier as part of my work experience for my hospitality degree, but you didn't know that. So I know there's a right and a wrong way of doing it. And opening a bottle of champagne at a table for guests raises the stakes big time. If you spill a drop, they'll be raging. But equally, if there's no pop, they'll be really disappointed. And I was taught to open it so it was very classy, very elegant, very grown up, not a drop wasted, very boring. Not like a Formula One racing driver who's just won the Monaco Grand Prix and is spraying it willy nilly of everyone, like having a major celebration. But there's something in the seconds before that pop happens. There's a magical window of 8 seconds where the hand tightens over the bottle. You might angle it. Half the room leans back, dreading what's happening. Half the room leans in. And everybody collectively holds their breath, going, this could go amazingly or catastrophically wrong. And then, pop, instant energy shift. That's like the starting line for the celebration, isn't it? The mood lifts, everybody's brain goes, yes, we're here for this. Now, here's what most speakers don't realize. When you start speaking, you get that exact same 8 second window. Your opening line is your champagne pop. And those 8 seconds decide whether people lean in or mentally wander off to check their emails, do their washing, whatever. So let's look at why our attention works like this. Humans make ridiculously fast decisions. Instagram post, 2 seconds, 1.5, overtired. Email subject line, 8 seconds max before we delete it, archive it, or pretend we'll come back to it later. We never do. Websites that load really slowly, I've just been doing this, trying to get a new quote. We're gone faster than a toddler getting offered vegetables. We are attention divas. We give things and people a tiny window to impress us, which is why opening with a concept like you have 8 seconds to hook your audience is fine. But opening with a story about champagne, that was different because you've all had champagne fizz or some kind of form of fizz in your life. You'd experienced it. It maybe brought back memories of happy times, celebrations. But this brings us to the real superpower here in your stories, which is metaphors. Not to be confused with analogies. I can do that another time. But today, we're talking about metaphors, and they're effectively our emotional USB sticks. We can plug something abstract into something we already understand. So that when I talk about a champagne pop, you don't have to work hard to get that anticipation. Your brain's already got that file saved. Metaphors are a form of shortcut that says, see that thing you already know? It's like this thing that I'm trying to explain. And your brain then just goes, oh, brilliant. I understand that. Thanks. And in your brain, it lights up sensory and emotional parts, which are the neural pathways, which is where the memory actually lives. And that's why the best communicators use metaphors constantly. They're not gimmicky, they're not decoration, they are like proper delivery mechanisms. And your audience will remember a metaphor long after they've forgotten the data. So let's take a fun one. Say you've got a key message to make about getting clarity. You could start saying, you know, that window in your house that you pretend isn't filthy. We've all got them. You only notice it when the sun hits it just right, and then suddenly it looks like the surface of a neglected aquarium. You could say getting clarity is like finally cleaning that window that you've been avoiding since 2019. One wipe and suddenly the world is in 5K. Or something like clarity is like cleaning a window and discovering that weird shadow outside isn't a stranger watching you, it's actually your own garden chair. Or my personal favourite, this happened to somebody I know, clarity is when you finally clean that window and realise your neighbours have been seeing everything for months. So these metaphors work because they're familiar and they're funny and they make your message land instantly because it gives you a visual. So if we were to start with another 3-step method, let's do this. Step 1, you start with the abstract idea. What is it you're trying to explain? Is it change? Is it, boundaries? Is it focus? Is it confidence? Is it clarity? What is it you're trying to explain? What is that key message? Then you pair it with something familiar and sensory so that it triggers something in the brain. So a couple of examples are like a sparkler, a messy drawer, a handbag, a tea bag, champagne bubbles, a toddler tantrum, a dodgy shopping trolley. Any of these things, these are just completely random. So get your key message, a random object. Step 3, reveal the unexpected link, and that's where the magic happens. That's where your audience will go, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I get that. They're making the link. So the sparkler, you could say your opening line should be like a sparkler, tiny but impossible to ignore. Or, that Japanese kintsugi, I can't remember that, the how to pronounce it, but like resilience isn't about avoiding cracks, it's about turning them into pure gold. Or the wonky shopping trolley could be like influence can be like steering a wonky trolley. You get to where you're going, but it takes intention and patience and sometimes a complete veering off or a change of strategy. So hopefully this makes sense. You can take an idea that's flat and make it unforgettable. So there are lots of different ways to do this. Some are more powerful than others. You can use ChatGPT, it's brilliant for that, or Google something, put your key message in, but it'll only work if you've got a really good key message. And remember, just one key message because you don't want to go over the top. But soon you'll get into the practice of how easy metaphors become to apply to your story once you start training that muscle. So remember the storytelling structure that I shared with you in the last video, which was the 4 H's, which is the hook, the heart, the head, and the hand. So remember, you can use this in networking, workshops, presentations, podcasts, anything like that. So I want to break it down and show you what that actually means. So as a reminder, the hook is all about grabbing attention. This is think of it as your champagne pop moment. That's the metaphor leading into a story. That's the curiosity, the unexpected statement. Hooks snap the audience out of autopilot and make them lean in. So an example of this could be, have you ever opened a bottle of champagne and feared for your life? Right? Everyone can relate to that. You carry on. There's a weird thing your brain does in the first 8 seconds of a talk. And if you want to use the clarity window example, you could say, clarity is like cleaning a window you've been avoiding for 6 months. So all these are hooks. You're creating the curiosity to go down this way and tell them more. But the heart is why it matters. That's the emotional connection. the human moment. And I always say, well, why? So what? Why does it matter? You know, why does it matter to your audience? What's at stake? What maybe changes if they get this right? And what's the pain point? What hurts if they don't? These are the messages. It has to matter. People have to care about it. So, an example of using that is we've all sat through talks where we disconnect instantly. We're wasting potential for the audience and the speaker. Or it could be about confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being heard in a way that feels true to you. Think about the warmth, I can't say this word, relatability and meaning that comes from this. Then it's all about what you teach. You all have frameworks, insights, concepts, methods, like the 8-second rule, the metaphor formula, the hook, heart, head, hand. So this is the how it works section, the head section. You make it clear, you make it clean, you make sure you've not got any jargon, just delivered clearly. And then the last bit is the hand. I always put it out like that. This is kind of like what you're inviting them to do next. And you want them to say, oh I can use this today. I can take that concept and I can put that into place. I can implement it. So you might say before your next meeting, practice your 8-second hook. Or you might say, choose one abstract idea and pair it with a household object. Have fun with it. Just have a laugh with it. Build a metaphor. Or take your next presentation and rewrite it using the 4 H's. The structure is universal and you can use it everywhere and it always works. But remember, you need to have your key message sorted before you do this. So let's go back to a single mini story and use the champagne bottle again. Have you ever opened a bottle of champagne and instantly regretted standing too close? We all know that moment of anticipation, and your audience feels exactly the same when you stand up to speak. They're deciding whether to lean in or check out. Research shows us we have about 8 seconds to capture attention, not by accident, but by design. And we can do this through metaphor, story, and clarity. So, before your next talk, create one simple metaphor to open with and let that be your champagne pop. So, do you see what I did? I've repeated it a few times, but that's just a tiny example of the full model in action. Clearly, you're going to build on that. But I want you to think as you come up to obviously the Christmas season, the next time you open a bottle of champagne or somebody else does, I want you to notice those 8 seconds. I want you to notice the tension, the excitement, the lean in, the lean back, the anticipation before everything shifts. I want your audience, to feel that same moment. Every time you begin to speak, they'll be asking themselves, basically, what's in it for me? Is this worth my attention? Should I bother? What's about to happen? So give them the pop, give them a metaphor that they'll remember. Do you remember I talked about star, something they'll always remember? Give them the message that they can use, because your first 8 seconds aren't the warm up. They're the spark. That's the invitation and that's the celebration. Let your audience feel that. I tried to do this live and it didn't work because I moved it to the side and the cork went. But anyway, I've now got an open bottle of champagne. So thank you for watching these videos. And as a result, you'll now understand the 3-step prep method that gets you focused for your talk even before you've spoken or really lifted a pen. You're understanding the power of storytelling to make an impact and influence people. And you've learned how to use metaphors as a form of a hook to help you stand out in a very noisy and competitive market. So I don't want anyone saying, hello, I'm Susan and I'm here today too. No, no, no. So I hope this has given you a taster of the types of techniques that you can use to create more impact when you speak in public without feeling that salesy way or forced. And last but not least, I have a call to action. Of course I do. I'd love you to post in the comments or on any of your socials, Insta, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'd love you to say what 3 things that you're going to do differently as a result of watching these videos. And as a special offer, I am taking £100 off my half-day VIP session. And instead of £425, you'll get it for £325, and it's best part of 4 hours. And as it's a month of a lot of expenses, you don't need to pay all that just now. So secure it with a £75 deposit and you can book that in the new year. So thank you for watching. And I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas when it comes. See you soon.